I want you to try your best to imagine that everything that we know today, all of our technology, all of our medicine, all of our understanding of the universe suddenly disappears and is totally gone from civilization. Let's say that civilization has totally collapsed and has no record of any scientific achievements or any engineering achievements. But however it happens, your job is to pass down knowledge to help humanity rebuild civilization. But here's the catch, and it's kind of a weird catch, but here's the interesting catch here. You want to pass down all scientific knowledge to help people rebuild, but you can only use one single sentence. Only one single sentence scribbled down to pass on as much information as you can. One sentence. All that remains of human knowledge in a single sentence that you can pass down to future generations. Only one sentence to rebuild everything we've lost. Only one sentence to resurrect science and technology from the ashes and give people the best shot at rebuilding what we have now. What would that sentence be? What would you put in that sentence? How could you pack the most information into a single solitary sentence? What would be in your sentence? I want you to actually try to think about it, to rebuild everything from scratch and rediscover all of science, all of engineering, and all of modern civilization. Someone once asked the same question to the famous theoretical physicist Richard Feynman. They asked him the same question and he did not hesitate with his answer. His answer was deceptively simple, yet profound. This was Feynman's single sentence to rebuild all scientific knowledge. Feynman said, "All things are made up of atoms, little particles that move around in perpetual motion, attracting each other when they're a little distance apart, but repelling each other upon being squeezed into one another." That was it, believe it or not. That was his answer. Of all the things that you could come up with about theoretical physics and astronomy and electronics, that was what his answer was. But could that single sentence really contain enough information to rebuild civilization? What I'd really like to do today is actually unpack that single sentence. Take a look at that claim, explore alternatives, and discover how these 31 simple words might contain the seeds of our entire technological future. Now, before we go on and really pick apart what he chose, give it some thought. What would you actually write down? A single sentence. And try to really think about what you would actually pack into that. It's pretty tricky when you really think about it. You want to pick something useful. You want to pick something general. You can't obviously tell them how to build a computer in a single sentence. But you want to give them enough details to short circuit a lot of the dead ends of scientific curiosity so they don't have to go down blind alleys that humanity went down, right? Do you pick something about germs? Do you pick something about how life evolved? Do you pick something about electricity or magnetism to kind of reinvent, circuitry and phones and things? Or do you pick something about astronomy, about where we came from? You could go in many different directions with this. Basically, you want to plant a seed with the sentence. You want the sentence to contain information, but basically to guide them in a direction to avoid all of the, as I said, the blind alleys. So I think it's really interesting to take a minute and think about what would you put in your sentence. So I definitely want to take apart Feynman's sentence, and we're going to do that. But first, I'd like to chat about some alternative ideas that might compete for that single sentence. Probably, these are some things that most people think would be probably good to at least put, if you can, into a sentence like this. First, what about Einstein's famous equation, probably the most famous equation in the world, E equals mc squared? I mean, that surely would be pretty good to put in, to rebuild society, for instance. Of course, it's a famous formula for a reason, and it reveals the equivalence between energy and mass. That's what E equals mc squared does. And that leads to things like nuclear energy, unfortunately nuclear bombs too, that's the bad part, but nuclear energy. So energy production, that would be good. And a deeper understanding of how stars work, making energy, and how matter works. But without the context, it's just symbols. What is E? Well, then you have to explain what energy is. What is M? Then you have to explain what mass is and what inertia is. What is c? What's the speed of light? What is that number? How would you verify or use this information without all of the history that came before it? So without at least a few paragraphs, it's tough to convey exactly why that equation is so important. And of course, Einstein developed that equation as part of an entire process of unpacking what the speed of light is. And now we know the speed of light is constant no matter who's moving, the observer, the source of the light. We know that the speed of light is invariant, and we know the speed of light is special. And so now when you look at E equals mc squared, c squared is like a conversion factor, much like we have, I don't know, there's however many cups in a gallon or whatever. There's 100 meters in whatever, 1,000 meters in a kilometer, like a conversion factor. C squared is kind of like a conversion factor that converts between matter and energy. But without knowing how special the speed of light is, it's not all that useful. Here's a totally different idea. We could go in a different direction, and we could say for our sentence, life on Earth evolved through natural selection acting on random variation in organisms. Of course, that idea comes from Darwin, and it's revolutionary, and that idea explains the complexity of life and the diversity of life. It's fundamental to biology. It's fundamental to medicine. It tells us nothing, unfortunately, about the physical world. It doesn't tell us anything about chemistry. It doesn't tell us anything how to rebuild technology. So it's great to know, but it's not going to really help them rebuild civilization to know how life evolved. And by the way, if you're skeptical that evolution happens, it happens every year with the flu virus. Viruses are smaller and have a smaller genome, and they evolve yearly, and so we have to have different vaccines to cover them. So we know evolution happens. This is not in dispute, right, in modern science. The biggest problem with a sentence like that one is it doesn't really send us down a path of future discovery. It isn't like the big clue that's like, aha, we have to go learn about chemistry. It doesn't do that. We need to pick some sentence that will unlock doors to allow them to begin discovery, bypassing those blind alleys. Now, another alternative is we could do something more direct, maybe more practical. We could say something like, matter is conserved in chemical reactions, and elements can combine in fixed proportions to form compounds. Now, this captures the basic idea of chemistry, so I think it's a pretty good candidate. And it would help rediscover the periodic table, but it lacks the fundamental physics that explains why elements behave as they do. So I think overall, this is a pretty good sentence. It talks about chemical reactions. It talks about the combining of fundamental elements. I mean, all that stuff took thousands of years to figure out. And one could argue that it would send them down the direction of chemistry, which would eventually lead to electricity and magnetism eventually when you start studying electrons and things. So it's not bad. It's just that it doesn't have any explanatory power as to why any of that happens. It doesn't tell us any fundamental nature as to why. It just says this happens. So it's pretty good, and I think it's a pretty good second sentence. I think Feynman's answer is awesome, and if I had to pick a second sentence to go with his, it might be something like this. So after we examine these alternatives, we can start to see the brilliance of Feynman's choice of words, okay? His sentence isn't just information. It's not just like fact, 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 right? It's a seed. It's something that can grow, that you can go, and it puts you in a direction. It contains fundamental principles from which much of modern science can grow. It's sending the survivors, the people rebuilding all the civilization, in the correct direction in order to rebuild. So what makes Feynman's atomic sentence so special? I'd like to go ahead and break it down in detail and really pick it apart, because really there's a lot packed in there. Now, the first thing is it identifies the fundamental building blocks of everything called atoms. That right there short circuits thousands of years of people guessing. Remember, they thought elements were earth, fire, wind, and water forever. So just going straight to atoms saves a lot of time. It immediately gives future scientists something concrete to look for. I mean, for a long time, people thought every macroscopic substance like water, dirt, wood was all like fundamental. So already we short circuit and talk about atoms being building blocks immediately. Now, secondly, it describes their behavior, and that's critical. Perpetual motion and the forces between them. These simple properties explain virtually all of chemistry, or at least point them in that direction. Also material science and much of physics. Feynman's sentence talks about atoms being in perpetual motion, always moving. That by itself could lead people in the direction of understanding temperature being the movement or the microscopic motion of atoms. Now, don't forget that for a long time, many thousands of years, people didn't really know exactly what heat was. I mean, obviously, sometimes things felt warm and cold, but they really didn't know what it was. In fact, they thought that heat was its own substance. They actually had a word for it called caloric, or they would call it caloric fluid. And they thought that when you put two things in contact, like a hot object and a cold object, the caloric would just be like a substance that would move internally somehow from one object to the other. And it wasn't until much later that people figured out that the temperature of an object was related to how fast the atoms and molecules are moving, and that the heat can be transferred from one substance to another just by transferring the energy of that motion microscopically from one substance to another. Now, the third thing is that it's verifiable and it can lead to actual experiments, which is what you want to do to rebuild society, right? You can make observations that confirm this statement, and then you can build on that confirmation. Finally, it's accessible. You don't need advanced math. You don't need to have specialized equipment to begin to understand and test the idea. It's a perfect first principle. It's a pure idea. Basically, if you unroll a sheet of paper and it has Feynman's sentences there, everything's made of atoms in perpetual motion, I mean, the first thing you would probably try to do is to look for these little elements. It might take you a long time to build instruments and all that, but you would immediately begin trying to find where all these little elements are. I also think it's pretty cool to talk about how powerful his sentence really is by looking at our own history. So humans have existed in our modern form on this planet for something like 300,000 years, right? Roaming and migrating during that entire time. Now, for most of that time, we lived as hunter-gatherers with stone tools. And then agriculture emerged only about 12,000 years ago. The first civilizations with writing systems appeared about 5,000 years ago. So really, we only have written record of civilizations for a tiny fraction of how long humanity's been on this planet. But the idea of atoms was first proposed by ancient Greek philosophers around 400 BCE. Now, despite the early speculation, again, it was just like, well, what if this was the case? Despite early speculation, real scientific evidence for atoms only emerged in the late 1800s, and definitive proof was only able to come in the early 1900s. That's basically like yesterday in terms of the history of mankind. What this really means is that humanity spent about 99% of its entire existence without this fundamental knowledge. So giving these new people this kernel, this seed that you can plant in the ground, short circuits like 99% of human history when we didn't even know this was the case. Now let's consider what happened after we confirmed the existence of atoms. So within 50 years of figuring that out, nuclear power was a thing. Transistors was a thing that allows us to build computers, memory, essentially all modern communications. Then you have antibiotics. Can't figure that out without knowing elements exist. Within 100 years of knowing about atoms, we have space travel, we have the computers I mentioned earlier, we have the internet, and we have modern medicine with all of the techniques of scanning, MRIs, PET scans, and all these things. None of this stuff could have happened without knowing the basic idea of what makes up matter. So the discovery and understanding of atoms really accelerated technological development in our own history at a really incredible rate. Imagine giving future civilizations this head start so they don't start thinking earth, fire, wind, and water is the way to go. They already kind of just go to what they know and can immediately begin building upon that. Instead of dealing with all the trial and error, they could begin with the fundamental truth about how matter really behaves. So let's do a hypothetical and see how could this single sentence that Feynman provided, how could it really spur the rebuilding of all of this knowledge? So the first part of it says, all things are made of atoms. So the first part immediately establishes a research program. Look for these fundamental particles. That's all you do because you know they exist, so you start looking for them. It suggests breaking things down to find their smallest component. That leads naturally to chemistry and separating compounds into elements and eventually to atomic theory. Then Feynman says, little particles that move around in perpetual motion. Now that phrase basically gives us the seeds of kinetic theory and what we now call thermodynamics. If atoms are always moving, then it explains heat as the motion of atoms. That, again, short circuits so many different thoughts that people have as to what heat really is. It's a whole branch. Thermodynamics allows us to build engines and other very practical things, steam engines and other things that would come later. It suggests the investigation of temperature, the motion of these little atoms, pressure and energy, the foundations of classical physics. And it also implies the conservation of energy since the motion never stops. Now here's where it gets good. Feynman says they're attracting each other when they're a little distance apart. Now this part explains chemical bonding, how atoms combine to form molecules. They attract each other when they're very, very close together, making larger structures. From this, we can basically rediscover the entire field of chemistry, that hydrogen and oxygen come together to make something different called water, for example. Once you understand chemical bonding, you can identify elements based on their bonding behavior, and you can begin to put them in a table and organize them into something that we now call the periodic table. Once you have some knowledge of chemistry and understand the molecular aspect of the world, then you can begin to develop medicines by understanding molecular interactions. You can design new materials with specific properties like how strong they are, how brittle they are, and so on. Now the next part of his sentence says, they repel each other upon being squeezed into one another. So this is a simple observation, but it contains the seeds of quantum mechanics and nuclear physics. Basically, when you try to understand why atoms repel when you push them together too close, you discover the concept of the electrons. Electrons have negative charge, and the charge clouds repel each other. The electron cloud structure of atoms. It basically, without saying so, leads them down a path to reveal the more complex nature of the atoms. In chemistry, we learn about something called the Pauli exclusion principle. That's another repulsive force that comes into play and governs chemical bonding. Then we have the strong nuclear force holding the nucleus together. All of that stuff is way down the line, but the repulsive nature and the attractive nature of atoms and that behavior is what can guide you in that direction. Now, from these really broad insights, we have technologies that naturally follow. If we understand electrons, then we understand how electricity can come about. And we have obviously electronics, which is a huge one. And electron behavior leads to transistors and computers. Once you understand transistors, you can build computers. Once you build computers, then you can essentially rebuild modern society. Now the nuclear forces coming into play when you push the nucleus close together and start to get the repulsive nature there, that obviously can lead to nuclear energy. Quantum mechanics leads to lasers, MRI machines, scanning, medicine machines, and modern technology. And don't forget that in the internet, we're sending the signals up and down to space, but very often through fiber optic cables, which is basically running on laser pulses, laser light. So modern communications is really dependent on quantum mechanics in the form of lasers, and lasers are a quantum phenomenon. So if you woke up on a colony ship, landed on a planet, everyone's gone except for you and a few people, and basically you're trying to do all this yourself without Feynman's sentence, humanity might spend thousands of years rediscovering basic principles through trial and error. But if you have this clue, a dedicated group of very smart people, right, obviously, could rediscover chemistry within decades, rediscover electronics within a century, and potentially rebuild much of current technology within a few hundred years. And that would be like compressing millennia of human discovery in our own history into a fraction of that time. I think this is a fun little thought experiment, right? It's obviously impractical. It's never going to happen. But I think it's remarkable because what it says about Feynman's answer is what it reveals about science itself. That understanding the simplest, most fundamental things can unlock the most complex things, or at least send you in that direction. And by looking at the smallest scales, we can explain the largest phenomena. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Jason, signing off. I thought this was a fun topic. I'd really like to know what you think. It's a little bit out there, but I think there's some good discussion there. So I told you what my thoughts are. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. Please drop me a line, send me a message, send me an email, and always remember to stay curious. Learn anything at mathandscience.com.